Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Good in Motion podcast. Today, I'm sitting with Reema, the founder and visionary behind the Hira Collective. Hi, Reema, how are you?
Good, thank you. How are you?
I'm doing good. So, I introduced you as the founder and visionary of the Hira Collective. What is the Hira Collective?
So, the Hira Collective is actually a platform of holistic practitioners. Think of like an Uber Eats, but for practitioners. And so, if you're looking for, a Reiki, or you're looking for astrology, or maybe you don't know what you're looking for, you just know you want to try something in holistic, like wellness or health, you can go onto the Hira Collective platform and search by modality, ailment, or symptom, or even just browse through our resources of blogs and articles, the events that we have happening, as well as any of our practitioners. And so, we call ourselves a collective because ultimately it's about us supporting one another and supporting each other to grow our own individual magic, our own individual practices. Every practitioner on the platform is vetted to ensure that they honor the roots of their practice and that they practice ethically. And that vetting doesn't stop just because they've been added to our platform. That vetting is a cyclical process where practitioners are constantly being vetted based on feedback to ensure that they do align with the ideas, the values, and the core beliefs within our platform, which is this collectivist belief, the generosity and upholding the beliefs of ethical practices.
About that vetted process, I've seen on your social that the number is only 17% of practitioners that
Yes.
applied were accepted.
Yeah.
So does that mean that the other people who were not accepted can eventually go back and reapply after changing some things, or
Yeah,
how does that work?
absolutely. So there is a vetting process and there's different stages to the vetting process. So there is a pre-screening. 250 people had applied to be on Hira before we launched. And so anyone who wasn't, accepted onto the platform was given some feedback as to why they didn't align with the values of what Hira stood for and was invited to reapply. We have had a few people reapply.
Yeah.
One person in particular has joined the Hira Collective since, really took the feedback to heart, and it really demonstrates to me that like the quality and character of that person, right? Because that person understood that though weren't honoring the roots of their practice, they were misusing language, and they really took like the last year and a bit to really retrain themselves, to find resources and things, and checked in with me, quite honestly, right? I actually invited them to be on the platform. It's not about exclusion, it's more about education. We do want to honor the type of people who are going to be accessing our platform and ensure that they are in hands that we believe that are trustworthy hands. And that's why that vetting process doesn't just stop because someone's invited onto the platform, right? Like, we do
Yeah.
take our vetting seriously, and when that vetting process is also cyclical and it can change, right? Like how we're vetting and what we're doing. Like, we're in the process right now of relooking at our vetting system because there's a couple pieces that I think have allowed practitioners onto the platform that may have not been aligned. And as such, we've had to make decisions to, exit some practitioners off our platform. Ultimately, the idea is that it's a space where people can feel safe.
Of course, I mean, you're growing the business, you're educating yourself, you're looking for feedback, so it makes sense that the vetting process evolves as well. And
Yeah.
I just want to applaud you for giving feedback to the people who didn't make it for this, maybe the first round, because back in the days, I don't know, I was looking for someone to hire and I received so many applications that I actually understood why people don't reply when you're not selected on the other side, because it was so many people. And taking that time like you did to give feedback to each practitioner, I can't imagine even the amount of work. So congratulations for doing this.
To be fair, I don't know that every single
Mm-hmm.
practitioner feedback, in all honesty, because some people didn't
Yeah,
make it through the pre-screening, so they got like a gist of a feedback. And
yeah.
then there were several who got thorough feedback. And
Mm-hmm.
I think the reason is because I'm so committed to practitioners practicing ethically. Like, that's the ultimate goal. That's the bottom line. So whether
Mm-hmm.
you're part of Hira or not, here's some advice on how, like, you're still out there in the world sharing your services and you're going to still have clients. Here's some things to think about. Like, I don't know everything. I'm not the be all and end all, but based on my knowledge and experience, here's where I think that some things that you can work on. And I'm sure there's things I can work on too, right? I think with the job application, it's different. Like I also had multiple people apply to, roles, and, you've got an ultimate goal of just getting someone hired on your team. So you don't necessarily have the space or capacity to give feedback because
Yeah.
you don't have the capacity, which is why you're hiring someone to take the load off,
True,
right?
true.
So I think that, my why is different when I'm with practitioners. And, the other thing too is like the hope is that they take that feedback, and the hope is that they make changes, and that, we can continue to have a relationship. I don't believe in burning bridges. I believe in building them. Not everyone takes feedback well, right? That's the other piece. And I think that's why people don't give it often. There's been a few times where I've given feedback and it hasn't landed well, or I've been villainized, and I'm okay to be a villain in someone else's story as long as I'm staying true to my values and my why.
Yeah, I love that. I'm slowly learning this as I get older, I guess, and getting more experience and just more confidence that eventually I'm not going to please everybody. So I read in one article from boldjourney.com,
Yep.
which was recently published.
Yep.
You fell into, I quote, the hands of untrustworthy practitioners. What does that mean?
Long time ago, I remember going to a psychic. I just had gone for fun, and she was like, "Oh my gosh, you actually have a curse on you.
Oh,
And
wow.
you're never gonna, find love." And that stayed with me for a long time. But she said that with this curse, I needed to pay her some kind of money and she can remove
Ooh,
the curse. And I was so young and I was so impressionable. And I was like, I don't want to never find love, right? So
yeah.
I think it was like $500 I paid her. And like that experience taught me a lot about like giving away your power, and just not in the form of like believing this ridiculous claim, but also giving away my money, which is a form of power. And, I think that's one experience, but I think there's other experiences too, right? Where whether it be with a therapist or with like any kind of, person who you're going to just, hope that they're going to give you their expertise and advice, and where it didn't feel good. Something didn't feel
Yeah.
right. I felt like I was being made to be wrong, or there was something wrong with me. And that should never be how you feel. Right. Along the journey, I got my own training. And as an educator, I'm also a teacher. I knew how I was making my students feel in my classroom. And I felt like that was kind of like how you should feel between practitioner
Yeah.
and client as well. Is actually my
Mm-hmm.
doctor who called out a few experiences that I'd shared with her. I was like, oh, like, I was seeing a therapist and this is what they said to me. My doctor was like, you need to stop seeing this therapist. Like, that's
Yeah.
not okay. And so, as I fell into the hands of these practitioners, yes, the experience was terrible, but being on the other side of it, what I've been able to do is almost create like almost like a list of what's unethical, feels unethical. Like, so like when people have a service that doesn't feel like the goal of their practice is to keep their clients in their ecosystem, unless your modalities are evolving and adopting. But if the goal is to keep someone
Yeah.
unwell and in your ecosystem, then that's not ethical in like wellness, right?
Yeah.
And that's why also Hira exists, so that people can be in your ecosystem and then move into another, like another practitioner. And the ecosystem that they're staying within is Hira, but not necessarily with that specific practitioner. I want to share too that having experience with unethical practitioners has happened to me as recent as a few weeks ago. We actually
Was
had
it within the Hira
yeah, it was
Collective?
actually within the Hira Collective. We had a practitioner on the Hira Collective who had offered me a session, a somatics session, a
Okay.
virtual somatic session. This practitioner, less than a week later, wrote in a very nasty email to me and quoted things from that session as to why they were basically villainizing me. So basically they had said, you had a session with me a week ago and I asked you how you're going to take care of yourself, and I didn't like your answer to that. And I didn't like this from that. And like, who are you to police me on like how quickly I heal? So she basically said in this email that, since then I haven't seen any improvement in like you improving. And it was just like, what? Like, one, I don't see or talk to you every day. How do you know what's happening behind the scenes? But for her to speak to a client, which was what I was in that
Yeah.
situation, right?
About
Was
private
so
matters.
so
Yeah.
harmful. And so this
Mm.
was via email. And then she forwarded that email to a few other people. Hira has this magic. Hira just removed her off the
Mm.
platform. And she's not the only person. There was one other practitioner that we removed, but Hira's cyclical vetting process is so critical. And I'm so grateful that no one had had a session with her at this point, that we
Mm.
were able to catch that before it did. It's
Yeah.
been evident that the energy and the protection within Hira, like the practitioners who practice ethically, who truly believe in the collectivist practice, are getting bookings on our platform. I think that I continue to learn, we continue to learn, the team continues to learn on what this vetting process looks like, but we also look to our clients. What are your experiences? And we want to know, like in this case, like, rather than you going directly to a practitioner, booking through Hira gives you that third party person who can support you in
And
your
by giving feedback, you can also protect the other
exactly.
clients going to these practitioners.
Exactly. Thank you for asking that question, though. I really appreciate it.
Is it the main reason why you started this enterprise?
I think there's a lot of different reasons why I started
Mm.
Hira. To be completely honest, it's something that I've wanted to do for over 10 years. And it was never meant
Mm.
to be like this full out business. It was always meant to be like almost like a little hobby. I've always been somebody in my
Okay.
circles and in my friends who people come to ask for recommendations. And so it was always something that I wanted to build. For me, at a very young age, having been exposed to so many holistic practices because of my grandparents, I understood with like what the essence of yoga was, or like acupuncture and eating nourishing meals and food. And I didn't necessarily see that practice in the world. And when it was very commercialized, or it was like completely like stripped of the essence of that practice. And I found that really jarring in my teenage years. Like when I would go to yoga class, I'd be like, this isn't yoga. Having like that inner kind of conflict of like, I know this is what it's meant to be, and this is what I'm seeing commercialized. I think that upset or that friction kind of grew as I got older. And in my work in equity, I also began to see like the stripping of these practices and the essence wasn't just harming the people who we're stealing from, but it's also harming everybody who has access to these practices, because they're not really truly getting the value or the real essence of those practices and really experiencing the magic. In honor of my grandparents, really, I built the Hira Collective. It's named after them as well. Hira was their last name. I just think that, having access to practitioners who practice ethically and honor the essence of their practice, who are on their own learning journeys as well, I think is really, really important. It's how we neutralize and humanize the human existence.
Learning more about the story behind the Hira Collective, and even with this conversation, you bring a lot of light on things I was just not aware of. And I don't feel I grew up really with any wellness practices. I mean, I had a good childhood. I feel like I was very balanced growing up, but I feel I'm more exposed to actually the commercialized aspect of wellness. Everything you say is really the first thing I hear about it, so it's interesting. So just you being on this platform, it's starting the discussion. I love it.
Thank you. Yeah, I appreciate
Yeah.
that. I think there was a period of time, when you're in your teenage years or early 20s, I chose the commercialized version of things too, right? Because
Mm-hmm.
it was
Mm-hmm.
easy and it was accessible. The depth of wanting to understand something. For some of us, it doesn't come until we're older, right? Or
Mm-hmm.
even if it was in our purview or was in our life, we don't necessarily engage with it
Mm-hmm.
until we're looking for more depth in life. Or I think that as young people, and especially young people today, we're already like trying to like walk in this world, right? Like trying to
Mm-hmm.
figure this out, right? It's like
Yeah.
when we learn to walk and explore the world, we're able to then like go deeper, right?
Yeah, it's exactly what I was thinking. It's at first you want to experiment kind of
Yeah.
superficially things, maybe even with lower cost commitments, and then eventually you're like, that didn't quite work. Why? And then I actually like this. Let me learn more about it. And actually it would work better if I was following more, I don't know, sacred ancient practices.
Yeah. And not everyone gets there, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's the other thing. I said we just have to accept people where they're at, right?
Yeah, and people have different priorities.
Exactly.
So when did you launch the Hira Collective?
So the Hira Collective actually launched in April 4th, just a few months ago. We have 27 practitioners on the platform.
Yay!
So yeah, we have vetted significantly since we've even launched. In the 12, 13 weeks that we have launched, we have been at Web Summit in Vancouver. We were showcased as an
Mm-hmm.
impact startup. We were given the opportunity to share our pitch as an
Yeah.
impact startup, as well as share all about our platform in a 40-word competition. Not competition, but a showcase. We have had 2 events at Toronto Tech Week, both of which were sold out a couple weeks before the actual event, which was pretty incredible. And we were at the Women's Show. So we've done quite a lot in the 12 weeks that we've launched.
Yeah,
That's just the beginning.
completely.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
we've had just over 90 bookings on the platform. It includes one-on-one sessions in addition to our events, like the events that we've
Okay.
hosted and things like that. When I say that, I'm like, oh, wow, like, oh, we have made a lot of progress, right? But
Yes.
there's such a long journey to go. And so it's been exciting. We're just getting started. We hope that
So,
people are willing to want to join our journey with us.
oh yeah, well, I'm sure they will. And yeah, you said April, and I was expecting actually a different answer, but it's because you started working on it a
Mm,
longer
mhm.
time. Was it 3 years? I think I
Yeah,
read.
so I
Or
had the idea has been with me for 10 years.
hmm
And then I think it was 2022 when I started to really like vision out like the plan, and then 2023, and then I got into a car accident, which delayed a lot of things.
I'm sorry to hear that.
Yeah, thank
Mhm.
you. And my brother was helping me and things like that, so were able to get off the ground. And yeah, so it's taken a long time, and it is a collective, so it's not just me. A lot of the pieces in the collective and that move and run are with the practitioners, right? It's the container is Hira. The collective doesn't exist without the collective.
That makes sense. And so you've mentioned that you're an educator as well. So how does your, I guess, your schedule works? I assume that maybe you work outside of the Hira Collective and you have the Hira Collective. What does a week in your life looks like?
Question. So, when I initially had started, it was over the summer break that I
Mm-hmm.
had like vetted a bunch of practitioners and things like that. And then I was still doing vetting while I was working, but it was more like, I think it was like 1 or 2 days a week in the evenings. And then I think a full Saturday or a full Sunday. And then that was like my hobby. It was just like fun, right?
Yeah.
And then I had 2 cousins who helped like with building out the prototype or the design. I had a developer
Mm-hmm.
working on things. My brother was kind of managing all of that.
The
And
branding
so,
is beautiful, and
thank
the
you.
filter system on the website I think is very well done. So
Oh, thank you. Thank you. I
yes, kudos.
appreciate that. But it took time, right? It wasn't
Mm-hmm.
done in a rush. And because other people were also doing it, they were looking to me for like direction. I was working. And so what actually had happened, I had actually experienced a very harmful experience at work. And that delayed Kira significantly. This is back in 2024. And I ended up having to go on leave so I could file a grievance against this situation.
Yeah.
And then I went back to work after some healing, and here I just looked like my evenings. So, like, my 9 to 4 was teaching, and then my evenings, it was usually around 5 or 6 that I would get on a call. Again, I still had a lot of help, right? It was more like the puppeteer, it was more like just directing. And we were supposed to launch in October of 2024. Again, a couple weeks before our launch, I experienced an extremely harmful situation at work and needed to go on leave again. And so we shut down our launch. Plus, our platform wasn't ready anyways. And I just took time to take care of myself once again. I was supposed to go back to work in March, and then the platform launched in April. But I haven't actually gone back to teaching.
What was your mindset when you had a timeline and it didn't unfold as you were first planning it to unfold? Were you very gentle with yourself, knowing it's just how things are, or was it a more difficult inner language that you had?
I think I was so distraught by how brutally I'd been harmed in the
Mhm.
workplace.
Yeah.
I think when it came to choosing to no longer launch in October, I think it
Mm.
was this sense of this is actually what's best for me right now as well. And I think there was an
Yeah.
acceptance because the developers at the time, we don't work with them anymore, but at the time they weren't able to fix this one really critical issue on the platform. And
Mm-hmm.
it wasn't until I think a day or two before we were launching that they finally were like, yeah, we're not going to get it done by tomorrow.
Yeah.
I wasn't happy with their communication, but I remember
Mm-hmm.
sitting in the meeting and I was like, okay, no problem. Like, and just kind of accepting, like, this is not the season and this is not the time, and really
Yeah.
looking at myself and being like, what is it that I need right now, anyways?
Mm-hmm.
Ultimately, I'm the face of this business and I
Yeah.
can't publicly say I'm on a medical leave, right? So my
Mm-hmm.
brother would still have to manage everything behind the scenes, but is it for the best of the integrity of the company so I can take
Mm-hmm.
care of myself, for us to just like put a thing in it? And so I think it was a lot of surrender. I think there was a lot
Yeah.
of acceptance. And I think that comes with a lot of not just self-compassion, but also compassion. Like, though we don't work for those developers anymore, I think they did bite more than they can chew and they weren't able to
Mm-hmm.
do it. And I don't feel good about the money that I lost, but I also
Yeah.
have compassion with, like, I think that they did the best that they could. I
Mm-hmm.
don't like that it harmed me financially, but it is what it is at this point too. And I don't think that it doesn't make sense to kind of go backwards and be upset about something and just kind of see, well, why did that have to happen in order for where I am now? Would I have been able to even manage the launch while I'm
Yeah.
not working, right? And so, and
Just
while I need to be healing,
Yeah.
right? Yeah,
Just
I think
looking at the past 3 months and everything you've done with the summit, I imagine it would have been very difficult to put those 3 months after the launch if it had happened in October. You
yeah.
needed that energy. I feel that very often entrepreneurs or anybody with a project and a timeline, you want results to happen fast. There are setbacks. It's just part of the journey. So it's so interesting to hear about when that you got the idea already 10 years ago and then the launch didn't happen when they were supposed to happen. And it's so interesting to know that not everything happens as we think it's supposed to.
I mean, it sucked, right? Because you're so excited and you're so
Yeah.
happy. Can you meet that moment with a sense of resolve, right? I try to ask myself the question, is this protection, right? Like, is this protecting me from something? For me, for example, had it launched in October, as a business couldn't publicly say the founder is not available, right? Even
Yeah.
though I wasn't,
Yeah.
right? That would be such a strange launch. Like, platform's available, but the founder's not available for interviews or whatnot, right? And so I think if anything, it was protection, because one, for the company, but also with my relationship with the education system, with my institution that I'm not working with, right? And so you may not like the timeline in the
Yeah.
moment, but there's things that we don't see that could have happened if it would have happened the way that we wanted. We only have eyes in our own life. We don't know the other things that could have impacted if things happen the way that we want, like we had thought or imagined for them to.
As soon as we make one decision, we just remove all the other paths that could have happened. But
Yeah.
I think it's a powerful example, your journey, even trusting the timeline and that things happen for a reason.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think so. We're at a precipice with Hira. I mentioned the two practitioners who we removed off the platform, and it's so interesting, even the timing of when that happened. It was like just before Toronto Tech Week. We can feel it within the collective too. We're at this precipice that we're going to go big. We're going to like make more of a presence.
Yeah.
And it's so important for those things that are not aligned to walk away, right?
Yeah.
And the same, you asked me the question of like, we didn't launch in October. Well, the same thing went with that, because we didn't work with those developers anymore. We now have a developer who we fully trust and we really enjoy working with. And he's part of the team. Like, it's not just an outsourced developer anymore. Now he's on our team. And so the delay sucked, but what did we gain from that? I gained the opportunity to actually heal and take care of myself. And, I had this friendship and relationship with this incredible human who's a developer on our team. And then, this other horrible thing happened with a practitioner where she sent emails, but then what was the good that happened, right? The good was that now we have space to bring in other practitioners. We can launch with like full trust of who's on our platform, right? And so, and as a result, we're also revamping our vetting system to make sure those components are part of it. And so sometimes life makes more sense backwards than it does forwards anyways. So yeah.
It's like Steve Jobs, I think, who said you can connect the dots looking backwards.
Yeah. Yes, that's right. I love that quote.
I really enjoyed this conversation, but I'm also equally excited to like dive into the Wheel of Life segment
Oh,
that
yes.
we started on this podcast.
Yes,
So
I would love that.
I will spin the wheel, and depending on the category we fall on, I will have a specific question.
Oh, got it. Okay, perfect.
I click. Okay, finances is our category. How has your relationship with money evolved over time?
Money as an employee working for the school board was like what I got was expected. Our jobs are pretty secure. So I don't know that I really had a relationship with money. It was just kind of an expectation that I would receive it. I knew what my expenses were, I knew what my bills were. And I don't think that I ever took the time to really like honor money and honor the energy of money. And it wasn't until stepping into building Hira that I had to actually think about like the cost of things and like, not that I didn't think of cost before, but like actually building something. I've had to really work on my relationship with money. There's a course that I'm taking right now through Mind Valley with Ken Honda called Money EQ, because it's really a relationship that I need to build. And I actually did this exercise yesterday where I actually spoke to my wallet and talked to my wallet, apologized to my wallet. And again, this is all through that course I'm taking. And it was so interesting to hear what money had to say to me, right? And like, so I'm starting to build that relationship. But there's also another course that I've been in that I really want to give a huge shout out to. Chantel Chapman, the founder of The Trauma of Money, has a course as well that I'm also in right now. And it's actually just finishing up. And it's been such an incredible course to unpack all the insidious ways in which, you know, there is trauma with money and how it's not an individual issue. It's actually a collective situation, how we've been kind of taught, right? As like money being an enemy and money and how money kind of like can be seen as a form of control. And so really having to unlearn that and relearn and build a neutral and loving relationship with money as my friend has been the journey that I'm actually currently on, like right in the middle of it. So that's a really interesting question to be asking me right now.
It's funny that you had this conversation yesterday with your wallet. I mean, I'm very intrigued, and I love the idea. I've been, you know, in conferences where I just stick my tongue out because it's part of like reframing your thoughts, and so I just know that there are things that are out of the ordinary. So, what did that exercise look like? Like, were you talking to money, and then money was talking back to you?
Yeah. So in the program, Money EQ with Ken Honda, they're like pre-recorded lessons. And so in yesterday's lesson, it was go get your wallet and ask some questions and pretend like money is sitting across from you. And what does it look like? What does it feel like? When you step into money, how does it feel? And then there was like, when we both pulled out our wallet, it was, what is your credit card saying to you? What are you saying to it? Do you need to apologize to like how you spend money or how you've neglected money or you've never even thought about like money? Because money ultimately is an energy.
Yeah.
And so it was so interesting having that conversation. Like I did apologize to money. I recognize that I've really neglected my relationship with money. I've been avoiding my accountant. I've been avoiding checking my bank account statements and checking like money coming in, money going out. There's also been some harm when it comes to money as a result of my full-time job. So I had to like apologize and, you know, take responsibility for my lack of, you know, attention to my finances. And then I heard money say to me, like, I just want to be your friend and support you in what you want to do. And I don't know how to do that. I think there was also this idea of like reverence, you know, when we spend money, appreciating that, right? Like, thank you, hydro bill that I got AC this past month and I was taken care of and I was comfortable this past month. Or like, thank you, cup of tea, like that I made at home, or thank you, food. And I think like that's kind of the message that I was getting from money was that like, I'm there to support you. Don't you see? Like I've been supporting you. You're seeing this as expenses and costs, but like, no, they're actually taking care of you. So I think that was a really like a nice shift in perspective.
I love that. And I've been guilty of opening my bank app and trying to avoid to look at the number of the credit cards just because I'm not ready. I love this exercise. And when you said, you know, saying thank you for like hydro and the bills, in another podcast episode I've done way more earlier with Doina, who's a financial advisor, she was also saying that she would yeah, be grateful of paying her bills because it gives her water, it gives her electricity, internet. So now I'm curious to ask her if she's also like following some courses on Mind Valley. My relationship with money, yeah, has changed too. I would just give that one example is that I remember going grocery shopping with my dad as a kid, and he taught me how to buy the cheapest things and the cheapest food items. And it was not like, oh, I'm looking at, let's say, 2 bags of rice and one is cheaper than the other. No, he would always tell me, look at the price per kilograms and you compare this price and then you take the cheapest one. And so that was always my default thinking for a good part of my life. And then eventually, as I got more interested in health, I started choosing sometimes more brands or looking at more ingredients and, proteins and sugar and like additives, whatever. So now when I go grocery shopping, I buy the most expensive just because there is the most natural ingredients in it. And that's why it's probably more expensive too. It's because it's been made in an ethical condition with people paid fairly, and they don't add unknown ingredients in it.
And then we forget but what's it valued to me? Like, how does it bring me nourishment?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, even if it's not by the ingredients, it can be what the brand represents or what it says about your identity or it makes you feel. Okay, I will spin the wheel a second and last time. Let's go. Okay, so this category is celebrate and contribute. When was the last time you celebrated yourself just because?
If I'm being completely honest, I think I do that every day. I think rituals are really important. And I think that spending a moment to just kind of take it all in, I think is really, really important. I've been really intentional about how I start my day. And part of that is my gratitudes, but part of those gratitudes is gratitudes for myself, right? Well, look what I've accomplished. Look who I am in a conversation, like how I've shown up in certain situations and conversations, and taking a moment to just acknowledge that. Sometimes those celebrations look like a moment of just acknowledgement, and I've been cooking a lot lately to nourish my body. And every time I've made something, I just had a really gorgeous salad for lunch, I take a moment to be like, oh my God, I'm so proud of myself that I've created this, right? And that I get to now enjoy it. It's the little things that I'm trying to focus on and celebrate, and just celebrate in spite of, or despite, or as a result of all the things that have happened. I'm just trying to focus on who I am and how I'm showing up in every moment. So yeah, I think I'm always kind of doing a little bit of celebration just because.
And what does your morning gratitude practice looks like?
I was gifted the 5-minute journal by Intelligent Change, the company. They actually sponsored one of our events at Toronto Tech Week, and they provided everyone a journal, enough for all of our guests, but there was also for our practitioners, and I was able to get one as well. So I've been using that. So every morning I, write my gratitudes, an affirmation for the day, and then I do a meditation and I do a tapping exercise, have a shower, do a prayer, I light incense. I actually have a globe behind me, and that's there on purpose to always remind me of my bigger why. And the bigger why is to support and, bringing healing to the world, and quite literally. And so whenever I light my incense in my home, and I always light incense and pray on the world, bring love and light to the world and healing to the world. And then I'll take my dog for a walk and I always set the intention of having a walk with an abundance mindset. So, I'll notice the lusciousness of the trees and these new flowers blooming. And I don't walk with my phone. And then we always walk through this huge area of grass where I do some earthing. So I take my shoes off and I walk through the grass. Nico rolls around in the grass, but I walk through the grass so I can really, say hello to Mother Nature, say hello to Mother Earth, and be one with nature. And then I make my way home, and It's about an hour and a half in the morning that I really give myself before I go to the gym. Yeah, it's been really nourishing.
What's interesting about the practices that you shared is that I've been having, of course, multiple conversations with amazing women. And I can feel that when there is a grounded energy like yours, there are similar practices that come back in the conversation. So in my direct circle and even myself, I feel maybe I lack or it's something where I can improve when it comes to practicing gratitude. And I find that very inspiring to hear about what you do and as a result, the energies that you give.
I do want to share though, when we self-criticize that we're
Mm.
not in a space of gratitude, it's not because of us, right? It's what I'm trying to say is we individualize ourselves as a problem. That like I don't have enough gratitude or
Mm.
right? Like we and then we criticize ourselves, right? But when we look at the world around us, like commercials, when we go to the store, when we drive and we see the billboards, we're constantly bombarded with the messaging of lack,
Mm.
right? We're bombarded, right? You're not pretty enough, get Botox. You need this blush. Like every other influencer is like sharing what clothing, right now we're in the Amazon Prime season. Like we're always directly being told that we don't have enough, and as a result, we are not enough. And so we're so programmed and primed to be on the opposite end of gratitude, right? I think that's something that like we also have to bring so much compassion to ourselves. This is something that I'm like actively doing, but that doesn't mean that during the day I'm not like having a moment of, oh, I wish I don't have shoes like that, or I want that, or like, wait, I wish I had more time, or like, right? It's just
Yeah.
I'm just choosing to start my day that way because I know during my day I'm going to be like bombarded with like messaging from society and the world and marketing and media of like, I'm not enough and I don't have enough. And that's not true. And we're human. How can we not absorb that messaging? And so
Yeah.
I just want to say, like, the fact that you acknowledge, look at someone else and see that rooted and grounded in this energy, it's only a reflection of who you truly are. It's not a reflection of your lack. It's actually a reflection of who you truly are. And you're not lacking. You're not acknowledging your gratitude. You just, unfortunately, we all are a victim of the messaging that's around us, right?
Yeah, thank you for highlighting this. The moment I use the word lack, I don't have another one. But
Yeah.
this conversation was a mirror on, I guess, yeah, things I do and I don't. But I'm just going to, just like meditation, I'm going to let that thought, flow in front of me and not
It can mean
feel
anything.
any way about it. Just,
Yeah.
oh,
And because I think you're a very rooted energy too. I think you have a very grounded,
thank you.
open, energy. And so feel like, you only can see in me what I see in you, right?
I love that. What is a recent win? Of course, you had the launch very recently, but maybe it could be this, it could be something else that you would like to share with me and the audience, just to remind ourselves to celebrate.
One of my biggest wins is, I mean, because I just saw it yesterday. So we've had a lot of practitioners applying to be on the Hira Collective. And when I was reading one of the applications, it actually said that the reason they were applying was because they were at the women's show. And two of the practitioners said, this is the best thing ever. Like, they were going on and on and on about it. And they wrote that in the application. And it was so beautiful that oftentimes in marketing and people will tell you, like, you need to be marketing out here when my attention has been so much on like what we have and on the practitioners, and that
Yeah.
they then are now turning around and telling other people like, no, you need to apply, like it's a great place to be. And so I think that's a win for me of like ignoring like the lists that you need to be doing in marketing and really just focusing on community and relationships and going deeper with that. I think the win is listening to my own guidance and my own path because it's aligned with my values and it feels comfortable to do that. that would be like a piece of advice to anyone listening, is like, just trust your intuition and trust your path.
I love that. This advice comes back often, and that's why it feels even more powerful each time someone put a vote on these sayings. Well, congratulations. I'm glad that, you just put some seeds of like, I don't want to say PR, but just you put some seeds, you spread the message, and people heard about it and they decided to join and apply. So that's amazing.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
We've talked about the Hira Collective, so I think by now the audience know what they need to type online to find you. But do you have anything that is going on at the moment that you would like to share with us?
Yeah, so the Hira Collective is, don't forget it's the Hira, Hira collective.com. So if you go on our website, you're able to search by modality, ailment, or symptom and book with any of our practitioners. We do have a couple incredible opportunities and events happening. We've got one practitioner who's got an 8-week course that she's offering for anyone who is interested or curious about psilocybin and wanting to like look into microdosing. And so she's doing a container where she'll be offering an 8-week course with anyone who's curious about that and wants to practice in community microdosing and learning more about protocols. And then we have 2 other events happening in the GTA. In person, we've got a Wild Women Circle, as well as another 2, one in Hamilton and one in Etobicoke. And then we actually have our launch party happening on September 26th. And so tickets are on sale. We have already over 50% sold, but we would love people to come to our launch party. You can find us on Luma. Yeah, and so we've got those big things happening. We also have our memberships open for anyone who's a practitioner who wants to apply. We've got 20 spots open right now and more to come.
That's exciting. I'm going to get all those links and put them on the website. I'm interested in the launch party, so I'm going to see if the dates work, but that would be amazing.
Yeah, that'd
That's
be so
exciting.
fun. Yeah, thank you. I appreciate that. Thank you.
Well, thank you so much, Reema, for this conversation. It was really a pleasure to learn more about the Hira Collective and, your journey building this community. Can't wait to see, like, not adding time pressure or anything, but I'm excited to see where it goes.
Thank you. And thank you so much for the opportunity and just like the wonderful and intentional questions that you asked. So I really, really appreciated this chat. And I look forward to being back on, hopefully sometime soon.
Absolutely.